Hello 8th graders, you are watching this video all about dimensional analysis. In this video, my expectations are that you are following along with me on the screen as you fill out your week document. This is the first video in two. The second video is going to go into a little bit tougher of some problems. The first video is just to introduce you to the concept of dimensional analysis. The first place I want to start with you is to point out that the vocab that you need for this is just the word ratio. As we work along, I'll explain what that word means in the context of dimensional analysis. And I also want to talk about, just for a second, the purpose of this. So the reason why we do dimensional analysis, I think that it's maybe one of the most useful things I've ever learned when I learned math in middle school. So I hope that you are able to use it as much as I have. But the purpose of it, the reason why we use it, is to change the units of a measurement or a ratio. So an example of this is the first one that I'm going to walk you through. An example would be, how many seconds are in one day? So I'm going to write that in. How many seconds in one day? So in this kind of a question, what we're going to be doing is we're actually just taking the amount of time in a day, and instead of saying one day, we're going to change that into the units of seconds. We're not changing the value, we're not changing how much actual time there is, we're just putting it into a different kind of unit. And that's the purpose of dimensional analysis. So let's get started. The first thing that we need to talk about are some steps. The way I see it, that there are 4 steps when doing dimensional analysis. The first step is to identify the units in your answer. And we're going to walk through all these with the example problem in just a second. Step number 2 is going to be to list what we know. Step 3 is to set up a plan. And step 4 is to solve. So let's put these steps into practice. For our example problem, the first step is to ID the units in our answer. So step number 1 is we want seconds starting from day, so the units for our answer had better be in seconds. Step 2. Step 2 is to list what we know. Now, many times the stuff that we know is going to come straight from the example. Sometimes it's not. Many times for stuff that we know, you're going to have to go to your handy unit conversions sheet that you received in class in order to get the things that you're going to need to plug in. Sometimes you'll write down things that you know that don't end up getting used, but that's okay. So let's make a list of the things that we know. We know that we're starting with a day, so we have to think about things related to day. And we're going to write these in the form of a ratio. So here's an example. The first one is that I know that there are 24 hours in one day. So I have just written a ratio that represents something I know. On the top it says 24 hours, on the bottom it says a day. When I'm writing these things in the what I know part of this, each one of these is going to just be like the same thing as on the top as on the bottom. One day is the same amount as 24 hours. They're just different units, but they're equal to each other. Another one that I know is that there are 60 minutes in every hour. Again, 60 minutes is the same as 1 hour. I also know that there are 60 seconds in every minute. Okay, so I'm going to use these 3 ratios in order to go into step 3 and set up my plan. For setting up my plan, I know that I need to end with seconds, so I'm going to make a little blank down here on the end, and my blank is going to be seconds, and it's going to be some amount. So some amount of seconds, and we want to end up with that. All this space in front is for the equation that we're going to do. We know that we're going to be starting with one day, so I always write down at the beginning the thing that I'm starting with. So I'm starting with one day, and we've got all the rest of this space to work with. So I'm going to go right into step 4. For step 4, what we need to do is we need to start plugging in the things that we know in the right spot. So I'm going to write in plug in what we know. And then I'm going to go back up to 3. better get to the front office, McKinney kids. So for 1 day, what we're going to do is we're actually going to multiply by these things that we already know. So here's the thing about fractions. If I multiply 1 day times 24 hours over 1 day, the thing about fractions is if I want to turn that into a fraction, I just have to put it over 1. If I multiply something that has a unit on the top by something that has the same unit on the bottom, what's really great about this process is that those units are going to cancel out. So that when I multiply them together, I'm left with hours. But we don't want hours, we want seconds, so we have to keep going. Now I need to figure out which one of these is going to be next in order to get rid of hours, and it's going to be the second one. This one's going to go next because it has hours on the bottom, and I want to get rid of hours as the unit up here. So 60 minutes over 1 hour. Multiplying these two fractions together, the hours are going to cancel out. Notice the numbers stay. The hours, the unit of hours is going away. Now I've got minutes. I'm almost there. I want seconds. I'm going to use this last one. 60 seconds in every 1 minute. Now those minutes cancel out, and I'm left with seconds. That's the thing that I wanted. So our last step in order to solve is to multiply everything across the top. So if I do that, I'm going to have, if I multiply everything across the top, I'm going to have 1 from the 1 day. The day went away though, remember we canceled it out, so there's no more day, times 24, hours went away, times 60, times 60 again. And across the bottom, we just have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. And on the last one, we were left with seconds, so I better leave that in too. We have 1 times 24 times 60 times 60. If I go to my calculator, that comes out to 86,400 seconds. And we've got the answer that we're looking for.